Hi everyone, welcome to my first ever vlog from my shed. So this is a new channel for me, Motorsport Muse, and the purpose of it really is, I spend a lot of time online looking at motorsport videos, and I just thought one day, why don't I start doing them myself? I've got quite a lot to say when it comes to motorsport, as you can probably imagine. So I want to do weekly videos on pertinent topics, F1, IndyCar, historic motorsport. I don't know where I'm going to do them all from yet, probably from the shed actually, although there's some issues with this shed in that there's a family of squirrels living above it, so every now and again you'll hear all this kind of tapping across the roof. But I want to get out on the road, I want to go to some motorsport events themselves. I've also got some friends with some pretty amazing road cars, so we're going to do some road tests of those, and generally just have some fun with it and see where it takes us. But the video today is all about my kart, so I've had a few questions in the past around, how much do they cost? How do you run them? Do you need to set them up? Who prepares them? So I thought I'd do a video on that. I've had it about 3 years now. I bought it in 2017, really because I wanted a properly quick car just to go and use on test days. I did a D-Max championship before that, which is an arrive and drive two-stroke championship, which I did for about 3 or 4 years, and I did okay. I finished 6th one year in the enduro class, had a few podiums. I was quick. I was as quick as anyone over one lap, but over an hour enduro race, if you're doing a 70-lap race, the guys that win those races tend to be the guys that make the least mistakes. And if you make 10 mistakes in an hour, running wide on a few corners, it's going to pay by the end. So I used to end up at 5th, 6th, 7th place, but it was really good fun, and what it allowed you to do was really practice your art in terms of driving. And they did things like in the wet you ran with slicks, you didn't have wet tyres, so it was really taught you about kart control. And the standard was really high, so there's guys that race in D-Max who, one guy now has just finished 3rd in the British GT Championship. There's got guys who win Ginetta Championships, guys who are racing Honda Civics, all sorts of disciplines that they've moved on to. Plus there's other guys who've gone into more senior karting, either racing or what I do with just testing. So I'll take you around the kart, give you an idea of the costs, an idea of how you should drive them to get the most out of them, how you can set them up, because although it's a go-kart, it is adjustable, and that can change the handling, and also the things that you want to be doing at the circuit in terms of getting it prepared for taking it out on the track. So hope you enjoy, and let's dive in. So here it is. It's a CompKart chassis. The model is a Covert 3. It's running a IAME, I can never say that, IAME X30 engine, it's a 125 single cylinder engine which produces about 33 horsepower, and it revs to, I regularly see 16,000 RPM, so they're proper little engines. The chassis was actually, it's 6 months old when I got it. I think it had been used in a race over in Europe, and then it came up for sale, so I bought new everything else, all the engine, everything was brand new. And I think all in it was over £4,000, maybe 4,500, and there's actually, there's no cheap motorsport, but this really is the kind of entry level, and as I mentioned in the intro, it's a properly quick kart as well. It's depending on the gearing. At Bayford Meadows I'll see 60-65 mile an hour quite regularly. You can get taller gearing, and I don't know, with a big enough slipstream you could probably get, probably 90 mile an hour out of one of these, so on a long straight. So yeah, they're properly quick. So in terms of how you drive them, to be honest, with all motorsport, all the time is had in the corners, all the slow corners. If you go through a fast corner, you're not actually in the corner for that long. You're probably going through it in about a second. If you're coming into a hairpin, you've got a big braking zone, you've got the turn in, hit the apex and the exit, and you might be in that corner sequence for 3 or 4 seconds, so there's more chance to make up time there. So in terms of the driving style, it's all really about the brakes and the corners. So I try and brake in a straight line where possible, get the kart rotated. You can trail brake, so you can brake into the corner and get the kart turned. And when you get on the power, you want to put the power on when you don't need to take it off again. That's a famous Jackie Stewart quote. So don't be like banging the throttle and getting the thing unstuck. Just feed it in nice and smooth and drive it off the corner. You basically want to get the wheel straight, and just scrub off as little speed as possible. The other thing you can do obviously is your weight, because I'm quite a big chap, so I sit in this seat and you can shift your weight around a little bit. There's also these weird techniques where when you turn and you crank the wheel over, people actually push, I can't really show, but you push into the wheel, and it basically bends the steering column down, and it puts kind of torque into the steering arms, and it can kind of alter the cross weight of the chassis. But really with karting it's about being smooth, not about opposite lock everywhere, keeping it going in a straight line. But there are things you can do to the setup to help with that. So just down here, this thing is the kind of the front anti-roll bar, so you can take that off. You can soften the front end. You can also put spacers in here just to widen the track, and you might want to do that in wet conditions. You can kind of do the toe in and out. I think you can do kind of camber and caster as well. The other thing obviously is at the back, so it's a solid rear axle. This is the widest. You can get various sizes of axles. This is the widest, so you can change that. Although this is a bumper and it's only plastic, it's actually quite stiff, so you can loosen these off and it will soften the rear end. But the big thing obviously with all motorsport is the tyres. So not only can you change the tyre pressures, and that will change the handling based on the temperature as well, you obviously get different tyres. So these are really sticky slicks. They're Comets, and how much do they cost? Probably £170 for a set. They'll probably only last about an hour, if I'm honest. But even if you touch these, they actually feel sticky. So when you go out and track, it doesn't take long for them to warm up, probably about a lap, and you've got pretty good grip. However, when they're cold, it is like driving on ice. So you can easily spin coming out the pits just with too much power. In terms of what you want to do when you're at the circuit before you're going to go out, it seems obvious, but make sure all this bodywork's on. So this is loose at the moment, but these are all held on by these clips. So you've got to make sure they're all attached. This thing at the front, if you saw the Karting World Championships a few weeks ago, there was a chap who threw one of those at a competitor. They're not that heavy, but it's pretty blunt, so you wouldn't want to get hit by that. It sounds really obvious, but make sure all the wheels are torqued up. That's obviously a must. You don't want wheels falling off. Fuel-wise, it runs on petrol, but it has you have to mix it with 2-stroke racing oil and get the ratio spot on. Basically, I use 200 ml of oil with 5 litres of petrol, and you can, depending on how you can run it a bit leaner or a bit richer. So you've got to make sure that it's full up. You've got to get all the fuel down these lines into your carburetor, get the engine warmed up. I tend to run with these on, these little air filters. You can take them off, but it doesn't really do too much in terms of the engine performance. The engine itself, I've just had it rebuilt about 2 hours ago, of running by Grice, who, as you can see, are pretty handy in the karting world. You have these little timers on here. You can't see it, but there's a number. It tells you how many hours the engine's run on there, so that's really useful. And basically, when it was new, I ran it for 6 hours before it needed a rebuild, top end rebuild, and that was about 400 quid. It's quite a lot of money, to be fair, but I probably won't get it rebuilt now for another year. The other thing you want to do before you take it on track is get your sprockets right, so you can change the rear and the front depending on the length of the track really and the speed. So you'd run a different sprocket at say PF International or maybe Lid, quite a high speed circuit, compared to Wilton Mill where it's just been. So ultimately what you want is good punch out the corners, and you want it to be kind of reaching maximum revs when you're getting towards the end of the straight. So this dashboard here, it gives everything, all your revs, gives you lap times, sector times, engine temperature, has a track map. It's absolutely brilliant, and you want to be seeing kind of it approaching the top revs at the end of each straight, or at the end of the main straight. The other thing you need to do is make sure all these clips are attached. So this is where your water comes into the engine from the radiator. You don't want to be dumping water on the track, that won't make you popular, but also all these springs that hold the exhaust on, you want to make sure they're all attached. Because obviously I've heard stories of exhaust falling off. I've even heard a story about an engine falling out once. So there's 2 big clamps underneath the engine which hold that in place. I've just had a new water pump fitted. So these X30 engines are renowned for water pump issues, and this is a new water pump on here. So basically the axle turns, it turns the water pump, and then it pumps the water out of the radiator, which you need to keep full, and it obviously gets through to the engine. it has one brake, so that's the thing with karting. It's rear brakes only, and it's only on it's left foot braking, which is completely different to a road car. So the discs last quite a long time. You might want to change the pads pretty often. I had those changed fairly recently. But the other thing, obviously, is your master cylinder down there, which is where the mechanism for the brakes operates from. You want to make sure that two things. One, you've got a secondary cable, so if your cable snaps, you can still have brakes. And secondly, make sure that reservoir's full up, because then you won't have any pressure, you won't have any brake pressure when you hit the brakes at the end of the straight. And what you tend to do is when you warm the engine up, you'll be hitting the throttle, getting the engine warmed up, but then every now and again just hit the brakes just to make sure that the brakes are working okay. So I've just been out in this last week at Wilton Mill, and this was a new seat, and something we realised was I was sitting too high up. I was actually, the team that put it in, obviously I wasn't there when they did it, so they did a best guess, and I was a bit high and I was sitting a bit too far forward, and basically what they did, they've tilted it back, so you can see how much they've changed it by. I'm sitting much further back now, and I always struggle with karts because of my height. I'm 6'3", so always my knees are kind of up here, and I'm just used to that. What you really want in a kart, and you can see most karters are pretty short guys, to be fair, their legs tend to be straight. It's great for weight distribution and also just getting you out of the airflow, because you know my massive frame in the air, it's like a big sail. So they've got me as low as possible, and even underneath, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see the bottom of the seat, it's just rubbed ever so slightly on a few curbs, so that's kind of where you want it. You don't want to be grinding away, but you know, it's you don't want to be sat kind of 2 or 3 inches too high. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's a few things that I need to be working on in terms of my driving. One is fitness, the second one is my driving style. At Wilton Mill last week, I did 50 laps and I was absolutely destroyed at the end of it, and everything. So your neck, your pecs, your back, weird things like your glutes, like your bum cheeks really ache just from like holding yourself in the seat. It's just your core, so you're kind of keeping yourself steady. Also weird things like your jaw aches, or mine does. I tend to grind my teeth and tense up in the corners, and the next day you get really bad jaw ache. But the only thing you can really do is be in the kart. There's nothing in the gym that you can do to stay kart fit. And the problem is, you know, at Wilton Mill you've got a really fast turn 1 and 2, so you're flat into the left over the curb, dab of the brakes at probably 60 mile an hour, turn it in and get back on the power, and it's quite a long right-hander. And you're probably pulling like 2G peak through there, but it's when you hit the bumps and you really kind of jolt like that, that's what gets your neck. And you do that for 50 laps and it's just relentless, and it just kills me. So I need to work on that. The other thing is the driving style. So, you know, less Gilles Villeneuve, more Alain Prost. So instead of flicking the kart in everywhere and getting it sideways, being more smooth, and I normally am. Wilton Mill's quite a bumpy circuit, and there's some really fast corners, so I just struggle just to keep the kart straight, to be honest. So as I mentioned before, you know, nice turning, 1 input on the steering wheel, not 10, so you don't want to be doing all this opposite locking in the corner. Just nice arcs, getting it through, pushing with that outside arm, because I have a tendency to pull with the steering wheel and that upsets it, so I need to work on that. But basically just improve my driving, and I'll hopefully get out after lockdown and do a few more sessions. So if you want to get into karting yourself, there's a few things I'd recommend. I mean, personally, although I know a little bit about karts, you know, when it comes to stripping stuff down, I'd rather get someone else to do that, mainly because I don't want to be 70 mile an hour into a corner and something falls off or the brakes fail. So I tend to get teams to run me at the circuit. There was a team called Pro Train that ran me this time, and I had a dedicated mechanic. That worked really well. But if you want to get into karting yourself, start off with arrive and drive stuff. So Daytona Motorsport is a good company, so that's who I did the D-Max Championship with. They also have Sodi karts. They have a circuit in Sandown Park in Esher in Surrey. They've got Milton Keynes, a big circuit there, and there's one in Tamworth. There's also Buckmore Park. There's loads of circuits up north, like Three Sisters in Wigan, for example. The next level, I'd say, if you're going to buy one, rent one first. So you can, Pro Train, for example, they'll rent you a road tax for the day, and some kart shops do that. So basically you can get a kart, you know, basically as quick as this, just to try it out and see how you feel with it. If you're then happy and you want to get one, you can either get a brand new one, but they can be quite expensive. You're probably talking over £5,000 for everything. or you could get a nearly new one like I did for 4,500, or you could get one that's say 2 or 3 years old, and you can probably pay 2 or 3,000 for that. But with those, they're absolutely fine. Just make sure that the engine is sound. It's been rebuilt by reputable engine builders like Grice Racing Engines, and it's been rebuilt fairly recently. You don't want something that's got kind of 7 or 8 hours on the engine, because then you're footing the bill probably in 2 hours of usage. But it is a good way to get into it, and it really isn't that expensive. You start off doing test days like I do, because what you can do then, I was at Wilton, as I said, on Wednesday. There was a guy there, Ollie Hancock, who used to be an F2 driver, right? So straight away I can gauge myself against him. There were guys there who raced for McLaren in GTs. There's guys who race, Ginetta Cup. So you can kind of gauge where you are against them. Then if you're comfortable and you're up to speed, then there's various club races you can do within many categories. So I really recommend you give it a go. If you've got any questions, let me know. As I said, I'm by no means an expert, but I've been doing it a few years, so I know a few things now. Hope you enjoyed the video. I've got another one coming up, which will be on, well, I've got two. So one is Lewis Hamilton versus Michael Schumacher. It's quite a hot topic, and actually when you break it down, it's quite an interesting comparison. And then the other one, it's typical me, it's the top 12 best racing images of all time. I can't get it down to 10, so it's going to be 12, so I'm going to get that put together again soon. It's been a while before, being able to upload these videos, because my internet has been troublesome. It's basically from 1995, so today I've got my new internet, so hopefully I can get this uploaded, and there'll be hopefully weekly videos after that. So stay tuned, hit that subscribe button. I've heard influencers on YouTube saying that, so let's get my subscribers up to 20, and then hope you enjoy, have a great week, and see you again soon.